and I would like to talk a little bit about C.S. Lewis and his writings on awareness. So he didn't actually call it awareness, but it is basically what awareness is. So I love Rhonda Byrne in The Secret and the power and the magic and all that she teaches. She teaches really largely about awareness, and that we can only live in this moment. If we try to live anywhere else in the future, we can get anxious, we can get nervous, we can feel already inadequate in where we are and who we are. If we live in the past, we live in old stories, we live in pain, we live in sorrow, we live in the nostalgia, the what might have been or what I miss, that sort of thing. And so the important thing is to live in the present. So my husband and I, we went and saw Kung Fu Panda 4 the other night, and I just really adore those shows, largely because I love what they teach about meditation and being in the moment and releasing and that sort of thing. The Chinese have had it right for centuries. Well, really probably thousands of years at this point. But anyway, so in this book called Letters to Malcolm, it is chiefly about prayer. And I just have loved this book. There's a lot of ahas and takeaways. But I want to read to you what he says on gratitude, which is that aspect of awareness, because gratitude and awareness come together. In order for you to recognize gratitude, to live in gratitude, to be gratitude, to feel it, you are in a state of awareness. You are in the present. You are experiencing, you're feeling that sense of gratitude. You're appreciating, and you're recognizing that you wouldn't normally have this, that this is something to be grateful for. So here is what he says. Gratitude exclaims very properly, "How good of God to give me this." Adoration says, "What must be the quality of that being whose far off and momentary coruscations are like this? One's mind runs back up the sunbeam to the sun." So when we notice, when we're aware, we appreciate, and then we rise. We look up. Thank you. I love this. This is beautiful. This is a blessing. This is wonderful for me, and I'm grateful. If I could always be what I aim at being, no pleasure would be too ordinary or too usual for such reception. From the first taste of the air, when I look out of the window, one's whole cheek becomes a sort of palette, down to one's soft slippers at bedtime. I don't always achieve it. One obstacle is inattention. We're not being present. We're stuck in our head. We're stuck in the future in the head. We're stuck in the past. We're stuck in old stories. So that blocks our sense of awareness and our gratitude. Another is the wrong kind of attention. One could, if one practiced, hear simply a roar and not the roaring of the wind. So inattention can keep us from following that through, feeling the feels, knowing what it is, and appreciating where it's coming from, what it is. In the same way, only far too easily can one concentrate on the pleasure as an event in one's own nervous system, subjectify it, and ignore the smell of deity that hangs about it. So it's just kind of like, yep, this is a feeling. And that's it. So when we shut it down and subjectify it, push it into that space, then we're not in a space of gratitude and recognition of something higher. This is a gift to me. This is a blessing for me. A third obstacle is greed. Instead of saying, this is also thou, one may say the fatal word encore. There is also conceit, the dangerous reflection that not everyone can find God in a plain slice of bread and butter, or that others would condemn as simply gray the sky in which I'm delightedly observing such delicacies of pearl and dove and silver. And there's so much about programming in this, and belief systems and things that if you've done a lot of thinking of what you hate, what you don't like, people have often looked out and saw the weather and, I'm going to have a bad day, or I never have a good day on a dark gray day, or that's just going to pull my mood down. And so immediately they go into program mode instead of into gratitude mode. Actually, one of my favorite days are the rainy days. I have a lot of love of rainy days. They feel more quiet days to me, days to give myself permission to sit with a book. It also reminds me of my childhood. I spent 3 years in Germany, and so it was often gray, and I loved it. That was just my normal. It didn't stop us. We went to Germany twice more. So I've spent a total of 9 years there. And I remember their theme was, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing for the weather. And I remember my husband and I went to the Bodensee, and we were taking a ferry across. It was really rough and choppy waves, but the ferry was still going and it was still doing its thing. And we were sitting in the car waiting for a turn on the ferry, and here comes a whole family of bikers going past us, having the best time. And they were not sitting there in that perspective of, I am not having a good day, this is awful. No, they donned their rubber suits all the way up. They had their rubber boots, they had hoods on, and they were biking and laughing and having a great time. So, we can find the joy in anything. Even the hardest times, we can find beauty and things to be grateful for. Perspective can be, it is a big thing. Richard G. Scott said, your perspective is vital to your happiness. Some, blind to the bountiful opportunities around them, live lives of sadness and despair. He said, be alive to the abundant potential that surrounds you so that you live a life of peace and happiness with periods of challenging growth. Back to Lewis. He says, you notice that I'm drawing no distinction between sensuous and aesthetic pleasures, but why should I? The line is almost impossible to draw. And what use would it be if one succeeded in drawing it? Anyway, he talks about how these become a bright blur, and it becomes brighter and less blurry as we change our perspective, as we stop grumbling, as we move into patience and gratitude. He says, any patch of sunlight in a wood will show you something about the sun which you could never get from reading books on astronomy. These pure and spontaneous pleasures are patches of God-light. God-light. I love that. God-light in the woods of our experiences. So, I love C.S. Lewis's perspective on awareness and how it is mixed with gratitude and just looking up, keeping our perspective up. So have some fun with that this week as you notice the things that surround you, the smallest, most simple pleasures, whether it's a book or your glass of water, and how nourishing that water is to you. Look up, feel that sense of awareness, presence, and gratitude. And